lowering barriers to trade and investment, we also need to talk about treating people fairly and ensuring your employees are safe and protected from legalized discrimination. So I want to broach a subject which I know is a little bit sensitive, but it has a more important business context than most people realize. Ghana's parliament is considering a bill that would curtail the human rights of the LGBT community, their families, allies, and quite frankly, all Ghanaians. Everybody has opinions.
And barely 48 hours after U.S. ambassador warned of political blacklisting of Ghanaian businesses if the anti-LGBT bill is passed, tonight the United States government is updating its travel advisory for LGBTQI travelers to Ghana, urging extreme caution amid emerging threats against the community.
Appears to be a trade surplus, but is that trade surplus to the benefit of Ghanaian businesses and Ghanaian citizens? No.
We have to start making that distinction. Then how do we criminalize an identity? Who does that?
And there's more unfolding on the story as we explore the diplomatic and economic repercussions as the debate amongst legislators and policy think tanks rages on. And thanks for joining us tonight on Top Story. My name is Blessed Sugai. Top Story, as always, is brought to you by Vodafone. Further together. And tonight, barely 48 hours after U.S. Ambassador Virginia Palmer warned of a possible blacklisting and ban on Ghanaian businesses' dealings if the anti-LGBTQ bill is passed in its present form, the United States government has finally updated its travel advisory for LGBTQI travelers to the country, urging extreme caution amid emerging threats against the community. Ambassador Palmer pointed out that the bill was hostile, discriminatory, and undermines the rights of people who promote, practice, and associates of the LGBTQ community. The promotion of the proper human sexual rights and Ghanaian Family Values Bill 2021, which is being sponsored by Ningo Pram MP Sam George and 7 others, is yet to be considered by the House. While tonight we're learning that the travel alert has been updated on November 20, 2023, now highlighting some of the concerns about possibility of crime and also what has been described as violence allegedly directed at members of the LGBTQI community here in Ghana. Let's get a sense of this travel advisory and what the details entail. James Aveji is my colleague who has, a copy of that notice to all U.S. citizens, I believe. But James, let's start off by understanding what the statement is saying now.
Exactly, Blessed. So when you look at that statement, if you look at the U.S. Embassy actually has 4 levels of travel advisory. The first is exercise normal precautions. The second is exercise increased precaution where they have put Ghana now. The third is reconsider travel, and then the last is that you do not travel. And Ghana is placed at number 2 now because the embassy says that, quote, Ghanaian laws contain a prohibition on unlawful carnal knowledge, generally interpreted as any kind of sexual intimacy between persons of the same sex. Now, punishment can include fines and or incarceration. And so anti-LGBTQ plus rhetoric and violence have increased in recent years, according to the U.S. Embassy. And so they are saying that they are members of the LGBTQI plus community have reported safety incidents that include targeted assault, rape, mob attacks, and harassment due to their identity. It is for these reasons that the U.S. Embassy is saying that their citizens should exercise increased caution in their travel to Ghana.
And that's the latest we're getting on this in terms of the position of the U.S. government on this. Just days ago, the ambassador herself, Virginia Palmer, had warned of this, the possibility of Ghanaian businesses being blacklisted and also other repercussions for the country if we go ahead to pass this piece of legislation. Well, let's listen to excerpts of why the ambassador believes that this may be putting Ghana in the bad light when it comes to passage of an anti-LGBTQ law.
But when we talk about lowering barriers to trade and investment, we also need to talk about treating people fairly and ensuring your employees are safe and protected from legalized discrimination. So I want to broach a subject which I know is a little bit sensitive, but it has a more important business context than most people realize. Ghana's parliament is considering a bill that would curtail the human rights of the LGBT community, their families, allies, and quite frankly, all Ghanaians. Everybody has opinions about the issue, and I respect those opinions very much, even if I disagree with them. But very few people have read the bill. I think very few people understand that the reality is that the bill undermines the basic free speech rights that Ghanaians otherwise enjoy. The goal of the bill, the drafters are not shy about advertising, is to make Ghana hostile not only to LGBT people, but to anyone who even sympathizes with them. It seeks to make illegal all discussion and all media that even mentions LGBT issues. So journalists would be arrested, landlords would be arrested, mothers and fathers could be arrested. If passed, the bill will make it harder for you not only to recruit and hire the best people from overseas, but it will marginalize educated and hardworking Ghanaians by making it clear that they are unwelcome. I have no doubt that such legislation would have a chilling effect on Ghana as an investment destination. Companies have already talked to me about American consumers being unwilling to buy things that are made in a country with such repressive legislation. It will make it harder for me to sell Ghana as an investment and trade destination. So the legislation, in addition to undermining public health and public order, would reduce Forex inflows, cut into your bottom line, and reduce your workforce options, not something Ghana's suffering business environment needs now. I'm truly thankful for those of you who've had the courage to raise these issues with Ghanaian policymakers. As representatives of the business community and as the partners Ghana needs to be a truly inclusive 21st century economy, your voices need to be heard now more than ever.
Well, so that's the possible extent to which Ghana could be shut off, perhaps the international market, given the extent to which we're determined as a country to go ahead with the passage of this proper human rights and family values bill currently in Parliament. Well, the sponsors of that bill, a very known voice, of course, MP for Ningo Pram, Sam George, has been speaking on PM Express with Evans Mensah, indicating why he equally believes that Ghana would not lose much if America decides not to do business with Ghana.
The major trade items between Ghana and the US was basically cocoa, crude, and gold. Cocoa, crude, and gold. Those are the major exports from Ghana to the US. Now, if you look at the companies in that space that are exporting cocoa powder, cocoa paste, or looking at exporting crude oil to the United States, those are not Ghanaian companies, those are American companies. So yes, it is reflecting as Ghanaian trade to the US, but it is not Ghanaian companies and it's not Ghanaians who are making that, who are earning that money. It's American companies working in Ghana and exporting Ghanaian products to America that make up that chunk of trade. So you see, so yes, there appears to be a trade surplus, but is that trade surplus to the benefit of Ghanaian businesses and Ghanaian citizens? No, it's American businesses trading in Ghana, trading in gold, trading in crude, and trading in cocoa.
And even as we speak, the debate is indeed raging on with Ningo Prampram MP Sam George there championing his cause and sticking by, his guns that the proper human rights and family values bill currently in Parliament will not injure our relations, perhaps with the world. And he believes that we can stand tall even if we do not do business with the United States of America. It's the reason for which I want to hear from some individuals joining the conversation now. Let's speak to the Executive Secretary for the National Coalition for Proper Human Sexual Rights and Family Values, Moses Foreman, who's joining us. Council, thank you for your time here on Top Story tonight. We're also joined by Senior Programs Officer in charge of Human Rights and Social Inclusion for CDD Ghana, Michael Augustus Akabo. I want to start off with you, Moses Foreman, knowing that you're a key advocate of this bill. We're now hearing the position of the U.S. government on this. In fact, the ambassador going to the extent to point out that it will be difficult to market Ghana as an investment destination that is tolerant of all persons, regardless of your sexual orientation.
You guys at Joy FM, you actually surprise me by the way you buy into a lot of the propaganda nonsense from the United States. You really shock me. So you're a news station. You can't do your own analysis and see through all this trash being thrown out by a U.S. diplomat who clearly is LGBT-oriented and keeps on throwing out a lot of untruths. First of all, a lot of these things that she's saying, and I'm happy that Sam George addressed the issue. How much will it take for the Joy News to ascertain whether the trade in Ghana and the United States is being done by LGBT people? For which reason, if we pass our law, it will be, it will affect us. What will you take your news station to do that? You tell me.
I guess it's a matter of, laying out what the concerns of the U.S. government is on respecting human rights. You don't think it is?
You need to push the concerns of Ghana. Go and read the Constitution. Article 34 enjoins all state institutions, including the media, to ensure that the directive principles of state policy, which reflects our culture, our cultural values, and our traditional family values are reflected. That's an obligation on your channel as a station.
I respect that. The Constitution.
That's one of the reasons why I don't, these days, I even stay away from
lawyer for winning.
The Joy FM that I knew, you called me to respond. The Joy FM that I knew as a news station will do proper analysis. And I know Evans, they will counter the arguments that are being made with information. But you don't pick up a propaganda and then throw it at us. In any case, how many countries in the world support LGBT?
Okay, first,
how many countries? You tell me.
First, it is your choice, of course, to describe this as propaganda. There's also the same council, the same Constitution
with information that is proper.
I guess you want us to have a conversation.
Propaganda and throw it at Ghanaians.
That's your description of what's happening. The same Constitution. Council, just allow me to make the point.
And you better change this position. That's not how a proper media house works.
The same Constitution, the same,
and you better do a better job.
That's
very cheap journalism.
The same Constitution you refer to, the same Constitution enjoins us to respect the views and opinions of others, and it guarantees free speech as well. For now, even as we speak, the proper sexual human rights family values bill has not been passed. There's a conversation on it. I guess it's part of the democratic process. You're simply being intolerant, I guess.
Intolerant? Really? Do you know that the laws of this country prohibit LGBT activities? What does Section 104 of the Ghanaian Criminal Procedure Act, what does it say? So you're presuming that without that law, LGBT activities are right in Ghana. Is that your supposition? You read the Constitution, Article 11, that talks about the laws of this country. You tell me, I don't know where you come from in Ghana, but tell me which Ghanaian environment, which Ghanaian ethnic group adopts or accepts LGBT, all these letters. You tell me, which Ghanaian ethnic group accepts this sort of behavior? Tell me.
There's a bill before Parliament. There's a democratic process that needs input from Ghanaians, and the conversation is raging on. I guess that's why you're sharing your concerns.
The conversation you started with was to package a propaganda from the United States Embassy and the United States Ambassador that if Ghana doesn't get involved with accept LGBT, then we're going to lose business. That's the propaganda you were packaging.
But that's the opinion of the U.S. government. I cannot speak for the U.S. government. I'm not a U.S. citizen. I'm just asking questions.
The ambassador there doesn't represent the whole of the United States. Are you not aware that there are 35 states in the United States that are passing laws against transgender? Are you not aware? So how can you say it represents the United States government view? Says who?
This is the U.S. ambassador representing the head of state speaking on behalf of the U.S. government. There's a travel alert also on this. The
travel alert is probably doing what is right. If they are telling their citizens not to come to Ghana and practice LGBT activities, that is fantastic, because we also give a travel alert. When Ghanaians are going to the United States, we tell them, please, you can't go and carry on a polygamous marriage. That's a fact. That's beautiful. So, do you know what is happening along the coast of Ghana? Little children, as young as 13, they will come. There are people from Anomabo right down to Cape Coast and Moree. They will go and see. They build huts, and then they open the anus of these little children, put a bottle there. If your anus is good enough, then they prepare you for Europeans who are coming there to come and sodomize you. That's a very serious matter. This is not a matter for which the U.S. ambassador will want to tell Ghanaians, oh, we should allow it. So travel alert, that's fine. If it's telling people not to come to Ghana and engage in activities that will hurt Ghanaian children and distort the family values that we have, that's excellent. And that's what she's supposed to be doing, but not to be telling us that if we don't get engaged in trumu, a bini sex, then Ghanaian business will be lost. Says who? And Joy FM and the news desk will be promoting this and packaging this. Well, Evans is a good guy. A lot of your guys are very good. They're coming in the next 20 minutes. I hope they do a better job than packaging this propaganda.
Okay, and I'm your friend too. I'm a good guy. So let's have the conversation.
I know you're a good guy, and that's why I'm not attacking you personally.
I see.
I've listened to Joy FM.
Right.
You know, I started the station. You know it. Ask those who know. With Kamala Dumont,
so you keep facing
right. They all know me very well.
So you keep facing this question
of the United States ambassador becoming the points man. She starts an agenda, and I know. Do you know they've been meeting a lot of journalists in this country? She has an agenda. She meets them, and so they say, "Oh, go and say this. Go and say." We monitor. We know all of these things. So we are not going to be party to this propaganda.
Okay,
that's why I'm
now
the Joy News desk to be very careful.
Good.
If she says something, interrogate what she's saying and whether it makes sense or not.
All right.
What she's saying doesn't make sense at all, and it should be thrown out into the dustbin.
The question now about the status of the bill, the decision, of course, by the sponsors is that this will go through, this will be passed. Eventually, are we certain that this proper human right, and sexual rights, as well as the family values bill, will indeed check what you're attempting to check, which is to, of course, prohibit the promotion of these LGBTQ community in Ghana?
I'm not going to check it. It's all Ghanaians who are doing it together. And, sometimes I get passionate because I treat them. We help them. This afternoon, somebody called, very important person, said, oh, my son has got it. I said, well, we push you through our medical system because people are dying. People are losing their lives. 90% of the people who come to us, we test them as HIV positive. That's not a very nice thing. So forgive me, your listeners should forgive me if I'm very passionate about this matter. But the bill, what it does is to broaden the law, because as it stands now, there were a lot of lacunae in it, and we have made provision for care, treatment, and support for those who need it. By the way, the churches have guaranteed, for those who argue that, it will impose a cost onto the state, the church has written a letter, all the churches, the Christian Council has written a letter to the Speaker of Parliament guaranteeing that there will be care, treatment, and support that is in the bill will be paid for. 2, there's also provision for those who get into this matter, this business, because of, psychological reasons. All of them will be helped. And then in the bill, there's a provision for physical and verbal abuse of those who get involved LGBTQ. People don't talk about it, but this bill is very holistic. It makes sure that if somebody has an LGBT problem, you don't go and attack the person. You don't go and beat the person or even insult. If you do it, you're committing an offense. That's what the bill seeks to tackle. And then we look at those who are promoting advertising, those who want to sponsor, bring funds. And we know lots of funds are being brought into the country, including the United States Embassy and a lot of embassies who are sponsoring lots of propaganda in the country in respect of this matter. Those who even want to start comprehensive sexuality education behind the back of Ghanaians. All of that will be catered for by the bill. That's what this bill does, and together we can make sure that this country is protected.
Grateful for spending some time with us, Executive Secretary for the National Coalition for Proper Human Sexual Rights and Family Values, lawyer Moses for a morning. Let's hear from the Senior Programs Officer in charge of Human Rights and Inclusion for CDD Ghana, Michael Augustus Agbo, who's also joining the conversations now. And of course, I'm sure that you've heard the argument from those who are sponsoring and championing this bill in Parliament. They feel that simply the values of the country must be upheld.
Evans, thank you for this evening and to your cherished listeners. But I just have one thing to say. You know, I'm George Fuamoni, keep talking about family values. And I keep asking, what do they mean by family values? What is the definition or the context in which this supposedly Ghanaian family value that is something of so much a pristine idea that they want to maintain? I mean, you got to look at, when you talk about family in Ghana, for instance, the type of family is influenced mostly by the type of kinship systems you actually have too. So when you go to places like the Ashanti region, where they are maternal, the family is built around the mother. When you come to the patrilineal community, the family is built around the father. So that is why when you go to the Ashanti region, you can find a woman who has children with multiple men. We don't call that woman a prostitute, do we? In the same vein, a woman of that caliber in the South, basically in the patrilineal society, who has more children, who have children with more than one man, becomes problematic. So whose family value are we talking about? There are so many different types of families in Ghana. The type of family...
I see, and that includes same-sex families?
Well, I had told you yesterday in my interview that CDD's position is not about whether we're advocating, and we have to be very specific.
No, you're not answering my question. I guess it's very direct on the point you raised.
Do we have same-sex marriage in the laws of Ghana?
No, same-sex families, sir.
Actually, do we have same-sex families or laws or marriages in Ghana?
You made the point that there are various forms of families here in the country.
Argument that the kind of families that we're talking about, and by the way, nobody is talking about marriage in here, but I don't even want to go.
But you laid the point. You were just telling me a couple of minutes ago that we have, inclusivity, all forms of, and types of families here in the country. I'm asking if that includes a same-sex family. Do you know of any here in Ghana?
Well, I will say no. I haven't specifically known about same-sex marriages. But what I'm saying is this community has existed in this country for as long as I have been born. If you go down the shores of Jamestown, if you go to Accra, if you go to certain parts of the country, the community has always existed. This assumption that it is a cultural imposition of some sort of practice that is being imported into the country is a lie. Nobody is teaching anybody, or nobody is advocating for anybody to say that men should go have sex with men. And by the way, the position of CDD is this: the state cannot put together a law that would, in a way, discriminate against its own citizens. I mean, if you understand how Parliament should work, Parliament is a bureaucracy, and bureaucracy functions on what we call instrumental rationality. That is a
too unfortunate. We've lost the Senior Programs Officer in charge of Human Rights and Social Inclusion for CDD Ghana, Michael Augustus Akagbo, also sharing his thoughts on this Proper Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill there. But of course, I guess we'll just try one more time to see if it's on with us. Mike, we lost you briefly. Hello, Mike? Okay, that appears we're having some challenges there. Reconnecting with Michael Augustus Akagbo, Senior Programs Officer in charge of Human Rights and Social Inclusion for CDD Ghana, making his points there about what the position of the organization is on this matter. We'll try and reconnect with him for you and then get some more updates. But there's also the point about what we should be doing going forward by engaging Parliament and also trying as much as possible to get their take on the way forward, the status of the bill and when it might be passed. Sorry, we lost you briefly, Michael. If you could just make the point again.
Well, so what I'm saying is that the Constitution upholds the diverse state nature of our country. So that is why our Constitution is a circular document. It is not a Constitution that is beholden to personal interest. And I think within the Constitution itself, it says that we could not pursue any agenda that tends to impose a religious or political objective on the citizens. What we have here is basically, you heard Moses Foramoni himself talking about the churches. The churches have done this, the churches have done that, the churches have done that. This is clearly an attempt of the religious bloc, I had said yesterday.
Oh, okay. Right, and I get the point you're making, but let's just, for the sake of time, wrap up with the alert that's been issued now, and it's part of the fears that you have, those of you who dread the effects of this bill on the Republic of Ghana. Giving this alert, what more do you foresee from the perspective of CDD Ghana on the possible repercussions for this country if indeed we go ahead to pass this bill?
Look, I personally am not concerned as to what the United States will decide to do in terms of its position or its policies. That is for the United States to decide for themselves what they need to do. I am concerned that we are using the state to sanction discrimination against Ghanaian citizens. That is where my problem is. I do not care what the United States might want to do, whether it wants to issue travel advisories for its citizens not to come to Ghana. I am most worried about the fundamental bedrock of our democracy, which insists that the individual should be able to have the right to enjoy his freedoms. And that is what my problem is. That is where our problem as CDD is. Our problem is that this goes against everything that the democracy stands for.
I get your point. But it's been a pleasure talking to you here on Top Story. That's the Senior Programs Officer in charge of Human Rights and Social Inclusion for CDD Ghana, Michael Augustus Akagbo. Earlier, you heard from the Executive Secretary of the National Coalition for Proper Human Sexual Rights and Family Values bill. That's lawyer Moses Foramoni, also joining us with his thoughts here on Top Story. I am Blessed Sugan. For more, just log on to myjoyonline.com. Next is Newsnight.
Ever visited a shop, picked a